Welcome and thank you for spending a bit of your afternoon with us. We are here for a discussion on connectivity fatigue, the challenge that has crippled the entire industry. We have a great audience here at High Tech Houston 2018, as well as many people watching all around the world on Facebook. My name is Mitra Sorrells. I am a senior reporter with FocusWire, which is the media arm of Focusrite. And Focusrite is the leading research and events business devoted to the digital travel economy. Every day, FocusWire provides the latest news, analysis, and opinion on technology and distribution for travel, tourism, and hospitality. And if you're one of our readers, you may have noticed we have been running a piece from the gentleman sitting next to me, Mike Ford, Managing Director and Founder of SiteMinder, that really sets the stage for why we are here today. So for the next 30 minutes or so, you will be hearing from some of the leaders in the travel technology scene. We will be discussing the challenges that they've faced and how collaboration may be the key to success for all. I have some specific questions for each of our panelists, and then we have some general questions that everyone is invited to answer. And of course, we've allowed some time at the end, so if any of you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand when that time comes. We will begin with some introductions. First of all, as I said, next to me I have Mike Ford. He is the Managing Director and Founder of SiteMinder. Next we have Charles Dio. He is the President and Founder of Sendine. Eric Tengen, CEO and co-founder of Oaky. Jason Pinto, co-founder of Pace. And Mark Hauser, CTO of AutoClerk. So welcome to all of you. So let's begin, Mike, with you, and I want to acknowledge Mike is a little bit dealing with some voice issues, so he apologizes in advance if you're having trouble hearing him, but I think it'll be fine. So Mike, let's begin. Tell us what SiteMinder has announced today.
Yes, essentially, and by the way, this is not from Screaming at the Flow Rider concert last night. I've got a cold. Essentially, we are announcing SiteMinder Exchange, which is ultimately a data service which connects property management systems with applications. So the idea is to limit friction in the integration process between people who are building cloud applications for hotels and the property management systems that house the data that these applications need.
Okay, so tell us why now? Why is this the time to launch something like this?
I think it's because of these guys. They're building amazing, innovative applications, and every day you see incredible new functionality coming to market. But they really need to access the data in the PMS, and they'll probably talk about it a bit more. But I think just that innovation is something that we've seen accelerating, and we want to support that. And we also see it. From a selfish perspective, we'd love to integrate with our own platform with these great products. So if I look at the world, I think it's a better place when PMSs can offer their hotels great functionality, and for these applications, their success depends on the data housed within the PMS in order to leverage all the features. So I think this sort of move to innovation has spurred us to try and solve a problem that's been lingering for a long time in the industry.
Okay, so let's jump right in then and get your perspective here. So Charles, let's begin with you. Sendine is one of the largest operators in the hotel tech space, and yet you're here today. So obviously the pain of connectivity is something that you're dealing with. I'm wondering, what does a solution like this mean to a business like yours?
Well, integration's always been difficult. In fact, funny story is I actually spoke at the 2004 High Tech, and the name of my topic was Integration, Myth or Reality. So here we are, almost 15 years later, and we're still talking about integration. So unfortunately, it's still very challenging. We have over 200 pre-built adapters for integration, and we still run into opportunities that we need to build new adapters, and we'd rather work with a company like SiteMinder and make that process easier. Anything that gets our core solution deployed for our customer quicker is our ultimate goal.
Okay. So Eric, Oaky is just 3 years old, correct? You've clearly had no trouble finding success in this highly competitive landscape. I'm sure there have been some challenges, though, along the way. Did you think connectivity was going to be one of those challenges?
I think before we started, we didn't think so, but it turns out that it was one of the biggest challenges. It was kind of a bottleneck in our entire growth strategy, because it's like you go into a bar and you see someone you really like, and then you realize they're driving the wrong kind of car, and you can't hang out anymore. So we saw it as an opportunity too, because it's the same for everyone. So we said, okay, instead of going after a geography where we would sign 15 hotels, come back to the office, be super happy, only to realize we had to now do 15 different integrations. And in the beginning, we were a bit naive, saying integrations, that's easy. Well, it wasn't, and there are license fees, and it takes a lot of time. So we deployed kind of a partnership strategy instead. So picking very solid partners with which we would do very deep and meaningful integrations. SiteMinder now very happy to be a partner of this platform. There are some great examples of PMSs which have done an amazing job, like Germany-based Apaleo, for example, where you can go live super fast. They have a marketplace, but there are a lot of PMSs where it's just not that easy.
Yeah.
And I think for us to scale, we have to realize that we need to be where the hotels want to be, and if they want to be at a certain PMS, if we want them to be our customer, we have to make sure to connect. And we're very happy that we can be on a platform where we can just save so much time by working together. Once again, showing that partnerships is, I think, the way forward.
Okay. Jason, tell us, has it been much the same story for you?
Absolutely. I think there are a number of our advisors who probably get an I told you so moment because we came to the hotel industry from general tech. We were technologists from lots of other industries coming at this relatively green actually a few years ago. And to a person, each of them said, integrations, it's going to be really hard what you guys are doing. But we said, oh, it'll be fine, we'll get it done. But we are a product-focused tech company, and so the speed at which we iterate our product and the speed at which we answer our customer inquiries and so forth with product was really core to our DNA. And so when we ran up against this treacle of having to integrate with, lots of sort of older players who didn't have sort of cutting-edge technology, it really was kind of a real kind of slap in the face in some ways to us, because it really slowed our progress. And exactly as Eric said, we ended up having to go to strategy that was not a geographic focused one, it was not a market focused one, it was kind of a PMS by PMS strategy, which is kind of an odd way to approach a market. So we're really pleased that SiteMinder is trying to sort of knock that wall down, and I'm really thankful to be here and be part of this panel.
Wonderful. So now let's turn to the other side of this, the PMS system. So, Mark, PMSs have been in the spotlight for the last few years. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the PMS, first of all, is the originator of the connectivity sin. I think that it was the first system that had the need to communicate with log systems, to communicate with call accounting systems. And as the booking opportunities and distribution opportunities expanded, the PMS was more and more critical in that role. Today, the PMS is still a critical part of the guest experience. But what's very interesting is if you look at the diverse systems that we have here, we all have insight into the guest data within our own domain. For example, the PMS has accurate consumption data, whereas booking points have the ability to look at booking habits, incentives for the guest to spend more and increase revenue for the property. And I'm happy because we can leverage one development effort to an ever-growing online community of applications for hoteliers and guests.
Okay. So now speaking of data, SiteMinder Exchange is opening up this model of data as a service. And Charles, I understand Sendine is actively encouraging the PMS vendors to move toward that model. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
Well, I think any effort like this requires the community and the industry to get behind it. And so, yes, we would encourage as many solution providers as possible to get behind the exchange so that more of us can use it. And like I said, I mean, our end goal is just to get our solution deployed as quick as possible. So If we don't have an adapter that's on the shelf and we can go to the exchange and plug into it more quickly, it's better for our customers, and that's the end goal.
Okay. Eric, what does data mean for Oaky?
What type of data? As a company, I can't imagine we've made a single decision the last 2 years which hasn't been data-driven. But we're in the business of maximizing incremental revenue from guests. We do that by using data points we receive from the hotel. The more data about a person that we have that can help us personalize the message for higher conversion is, of course, very important. But in regards to the data, we need a small amount of data to just go live. And if you have a solution in the hotel industry where you need a data from the PMS, then you need to find solutions for how to get that data. And just like Charles said, if you find a customer who's so excited to buy your solution and work together, it's all about going live as soon as possible. So what this data maybe means for us is that we can apply a more geographical approach all of a sudden, because we now, through the exchange, get access to other geographical regions where we would have no previous access to. That's super cool, I think.
Okay.
Australia, for example, stuff like that.
He approves. Yeah. So I have some general questions now, so all of you please feel free to jump in and let's get this discussion going. Why do you think this issue of connectivity is so pervasive in hotel technology? Anyone want the mic?
Well, again, I think in the realm of the guest experience, we all have insight in areas that are coming from different perspectives. And the ability and need to integrate has always been there in the industry. It's a matter of the more complete picture you can get of your guest, the better job you can do of servicing that guest.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts there? Why has this been such an issue?
Yeah, I think, this, and this is not just the hospitality industry, but there are lots of industries where people think of a walled garden approach as the best way to retain customers. So they sort of very begrudgingly connect with other parties because they think actually some value is going to walk out the door if I connect with someone else. Whereas really the way to think about it is you're going to live and die by product. You're only going to keep your customer happy if you're selling the best product to them and making it dead easy for them to use your product. So building these walled gardens and these barriers to adoption and connectivity really in the long term are not helping you. And I think it's just taken time for this industry to sort of adopt that thinking. And again, it's happening in other industries as well. And it's just one where it takes time to break that wall down and for people to adopt a really kind of customer and product centric mindset.
I just have to add one other thing. I mean, the industry has always been behind on technology. It's just a fact. It's a reality. And even now where we have more structured interfaces, APIs, web services that define name value pairs in an XML schema, I mean, you still have trouble with integration because the nuances of the data, even when they're defined through structure, don't actually have the outputs that are expected. So, for example, like some of the PMSs will treat ShareWiths different by installation. So even through a structured interface, you've got to treat that data differently when you actually consume it. So we're still going to struggle, and it's not just because our industry isn't smart about things. I mean, the fact is that we're very complex. A hotel is a very complex transactional system. The PMS has to be complex to actually account for everything that it's trying to manage. I mean, phone systems, and some cases, restaurants, and some cases, golf courses and spas, and I mean, a small city in some situations. And so it's very complex data. It's very difficult to consume it, even in a structured format. So it's just a reality that we've got to exist with, and fortunately, things like SiteMinder Exchange will hopefully make that better.
One of the terms I've heard often is this issue of the legacy systems, that we're dealing with some of this older technology, and sometimes getting these updates and things, it's just a slow process.
I think also fragmentation of the industry in terms of lots and lots of systems make it incredibly difficult from a resource perspective, a cost perspective, both for the application as well as the PMS. just the time to market, to actually build all of these things individually. So that's sort of the motivation behind it. It's just one connection that has to be made, and you get multiple partners from that one connection, as opposed to many point-to-point connections, which even if they are great APIs, it still takes effort, as you say. It still takes time to test and certify, and you have to get people aligned, organizationally, to make sure they're ready to do that together at the same time. And, it just really does take a long time. And if you consider there's 500, PMSs for an application to cover all of that is incredibly difficult.
So I'm curious your thoughts, the one piece that's kind of not here then, of course, would be the hotels. So now that this exchange is available, the opportunities that it presents is available, how do you think independent hotels as well as large chains should start to evaluate some of their strategies? What does this mean for them?
If I were a hotel, I would go to, what is it? SiteMinder.com/SMXConnect? Something like that. You will have the URL in the feed. Because you can see what's available and basically cherry pick the type of applications and software solutions that you want to use. I think what this allows hotels to do, I remember it so clearly. We were talking to a customer of ours who was using a PMS, which is, let's say, not so easy to integrate with. And he said, what's happening is that I am hindered in my own innovation because I want to do so much, but the time that it takes and the resources that it costs me, it not only makes it a bad financial decision, it also takes away the fun of it, Right. and now you can cherry pick from cool stuff that you want to have, and not too distant future, you will have it installed, and you can be ready to play with it within seconds. That's amazing. Yeah. I think looking at that type of future makes me very excited, and I think it's up to us as vendors, but also to the hotels, especially those hoteliers out there who are what we call like next-gen hoteliers, who are leading the wave, to start trying these things and create some good use cases together, so we can get the late laggards live on testing these new experience too.
Jason?
Sure. I think one exciting opportunity this creates is really that you can stitch together best of breed. No hotelier wants to run an IT department. That is the last thing a hotelier wants. So generally, they're kind of more interested in getting a sort of a single solution out of the box that does everything, and generally does most things pretty poorly. Whereas with SMX, they have the opportunity to stitch together best of breed for each function that they want. And that's really a kind of an incredible opportunity that basically doesn't come with the overhead of having to run an IT department to do all the stitching together. So that to me is what hoteliers should be really excited about, that they kind of really have, the best upsell app, in my humble opinion, the best revenue management technology out there, for example.
Okay. So I'm curious what all of you think this signals for the industry and where we go from here. If we're all together again in a couple of years at High Tech in 2020, what might we be saying then on this topic, or in 5 years?
I think it'll still be an issue because you have so many new parties every year in the hospitality industry. You look on the floor today, how many of these vendors won't be here next year? And so as a developer of software, I've got to pick my partners very carefully so that I'm not wasting a development effort that could be a 3-month effort.
Right. I think they're fixing that.
There's some resonance there in that statement, it must be.
Any other thoughts on kind of what we might see in the coming years?
I think if it was 15 years ago you were talking about integrations, I think probably in 15 years we will still be talking about integrations. But the beauty of being an early adopter of anything is that you can really truly reap the rewards of something that no one else even might imagine is possible. So there will be insane competitive advantages available to those who dare to try. And in 5 years, let's look and see if we have hotel groups who people might have thought not was able to be so successful, but thanks to adopting new technology and platforms like these, they are out competing their competition like no tomorrow. I think that would be super cool, because in the end we do this for them and their hotel guests.
Okay. Moving ahead, what can the industry do overall? Any thoughts there to ensure that connectivity isn't simply forgotten, that it's something that people are continuing to take steps to work toward to better support the hotels, as you discussed?
From our perspective, we really need PMSs and apps to come to the party like these guys. I think if the parties to the exchange don't put the effort in, I think everyone will be left with the same problem going forward. So, I would encourage people whose success depends on it and depends on integration to at least make the small effort to connect in. It's not a big effort or a big cost to the business to actually do that. So there's very little to risk unless you're worried about being open and sharing, in which case you're not the right kind of mindset for this exchange. So I think the industry has to determine its own destiny by participating in whichever initiative it is that might help them.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And the only thing I would add is just it needs to be cost effective for the hotel community. I mean, it's easy to take a piece of each transaction as you're moving data around, and we've got to all be committed to not doing that to make this achieve the outcome that we're looking for.
Do you want to add something, Jason?
Just one word resonate with Mike: openness. I think that really is important. We need to embrace that openness and actually look at other markets where people have embraced openness. So the payments market, for example, if you want to go use and integrate with Stripe, very, very quick process because they've really adopted this open attitude to what they're doing. So that really, I think, is an important thing for the industry to do.
Okay. So ultimately, I suppose at the end of this chain here, it all comes down to the customers, their experience, their loyalty, those hotel guests. What does a solution like this potentially mean for an individual hotel, the way it's able to interact with its guests? Is there any way to kind of quantify that yet?
Well, I mean, that's going to be dictated by the solution that's actually connected to the exchange, in my opinion. I mean, the data is the data. It's not. It's how you transform that data and action it that makes it meaningful to the customer experience.
I also think that with guest profiles and the ability to understand guest preferences and share those among various systems, it enhances the overall guest experience.
Okay.
And just to add something, I think it's about freedom. If I was a hotelier and I can feel that I finally have the freedom to actually start using what I would like to use, and also in a platform like this, if you're, for example, a SiteMinder customer, it's kind of putting a stamp that if Oaky can be there, then if we trust SiteMinder, so we also trust Oaky. So there's some help in the buying process potentially, just the fact that you will know that this is the quality that you will be looking at. But I think definitely the freedom, that would change the whole game for me if I was a hotelier, that I can actually start using something where there's no integration fees, takes no time to connect, and I can just start, innovating and trying around different solutions too. That's something totally new. You're not locked in necessarily for 3-4 years. So if it doesn't work, you can try some of the other apps that are doing something similar.
So do you think that data as a service is the way forward? Is that...
Shall I go? I can just real quick, since I have the mic. I think the challenge of the fragmented landscape in terms of data for every solution that needs PMS data is so big that there's insane value for the company that can solve this problem. So with that said, I think it's definitely of the way forward.
Yeah, I think it's a great start. I think it's definitely something we're all saying we should get behind. But there's never any one silver bullet in any of these type of complex questions. So, yes, I'm a big fan. Let's move forward. But there's always going to be different ways to grab data.
I think one important embedded question in your question is about business model. In that, basically there are a lot of rent seekers in the industry trying to kind of take a toll out of everyone at every point. And with the data as a service model, you're going to have to basically either find other places to generate revenue, or take some of that rent seeking away, basically. So I think it's not clear how that is all going to shake out, because I think a lot of companies are going to have to really take a serious look at how they generate their revenue, basically, and what points in the whole process they take their pound of flesh out of the market.
Okay. Do we have any questions from anyone here in the audience that wants to raise a hand, or any questions? No? Okay. Any other final thoughts that any of you may want to share on this topic of the announcement of the exchange? No? You're all done. Okay. Well, I guess that'll do it for us here. It's been a very interesting discussion about this topic of connectivity and how collaboration may be the key to success for everyone, really. Thank you all for joining us here live. I do want to add that we will, of course, be continuing to cover this topic at FocusWire, and I encourage you all to sign up for our newsletter at focuswire.com, where you can get a daily digest every morning of some of these topics for the industry. And if you have questions, those of you that are here at the booth, please stick around and talk to the SiteMinder folks to get your questions answered. And of course, those of you watching on Facebook, just go to SiteMinder.com and you will find all the information you need right there. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.